Hello, this is Ty Anderson for Addin Express. In this video, I'm going to explain the architecture and programming model of Addin Express 2010 and how you can use it to build COM add-ins for the various Office suites available today. Let's start off by starting about the Addin Express architecture, and I may refer to Addin Express just as ADX for short, but I'll open up Visual Studio and let's create just a quick little Addin Express project that will run against Outlook 2010, and then we'll talk a bit about architecture and the programming model. So when you open up Visual Studio, you'll see the new project dialog box, and where the ADX project templates are found is within the other project types node inside of the installed templates area. Next, we need to go to the extensibility subnode, and inside of there you'll see the ADX COM add-in project type. So I'll just call this an ADX Outlook sample and say OK. Now what happens is Addin Express gives us a little dialog box that really just walks us through the initial setup of the Visual Studio solution and gives us some options, and these options have ramifications, and I'll go over those as best I can, and at the end of this little wizard we'll have a new project. Okay, so the first thing here is we need to select our programming language, and I'm going to just select Visual Basic. Although I'm quite capable of Visual C#, I'm going to choose Visual Basic. Now next up are our interop assemblies, and we have our choice of version neutral, which will support Office 2000 and higher. So if you're targeting, say, an Outlook COM add-in and you want to support Outlook 2000 all the way up to Outlook 2010, this is the choice you should select. Now be aware, if you do something like this, you're going to need to code to the least common denominator and use objects and functions methods that are available throughout every version. So if you try to call something in Outlook 2010, it's not going to work. Something that's Outlook 2010 specific will not work inside of something that's Outlook 2000 specific. You can certainly trap those and code around it, but just so you know. You also could choose the currently installed Office version, which for me would be the Outlook or the Office 2010 beta. For this demo, will just choose version neutral, and we'll click Next. Now, with COM add-ins versus something like Visual Studio Tools for Office, you have the ability to support all of the different Microsoft Office applications within one add-in. Again, you need to code around that and do things that are specific for each object model of each application inside of Office, but you can do it. Here, the applications that are actually installed on my machine are available for me to select as a targeted application. You notice things like Visio, MapPoint, Front Page Project, they're not installed on my system, so they're not available. We want, for this demo, Microsoft Outlook. I'll click Next. And next up is just the strong name key to uniquely identify the application. And I'm going to say Generate New. I don't have an existing one that I want to use, and I'll say Finish. And with that, we now have, inside of Visual Studio 2010, our ADX solution. Now the ADX solution contains this Addin Module DB file, and this is the file. It opens by default, but what it is, it's the central location for all the code that we'll write to interact with the add-in. Certainly we can add other classes and things like this, but this is the place where we do the things that interact with Office. For example, the startup and shutdown events, we can get to those up here in the Addin Module events, and we can code such things as add-in initialize, add-in startup complete, add-in finalize, begin shutdown, etc. And we can respond to those events and set up and shut down our add-in as needed. Make sure the objects we need are available. Also, too, we have quick and easy access here via this Outlook app property that gives us quick and easy and centralized access anywhere within our code to the Outlook application object. Now what's really cool is the designer for this. There's a designer that Addin Express provides for Addin Module, and let's just take a look at this. And right now it doesn't look like much, but what we can begin to do is visually design such things as command bars, ribbons, even events that we want to override, etc. And here's how we do it. We do it with just a little right click, and for instance, say I want to add, I don't want to do a command bar because this will be Outlook 2010, so what I might want to do is add a ribbon. So we'll click the Add Ribbon tab, and there we go. And I can begin to edit the controls on this ribbon tab simply by right-clicking it and saying Edit Controls. And now you see we have a nice little visual designer. And I would start by maybe adding a group, and then within this group, we'll call it, give it a caption of ADX Demo. And then I can begin to just put buttons, or let's do like a label and maybe a checkbox, whatever. All the controls that are available to the ribbon are here visually, and we can begin to build it out and do what we want with it within this designer. Also, too, now that I have those buttons, they don't show up on the designer, but they are available in the properties window. And I could say ADX, ribbon button 1, and come over here and double click, and I've now got the on click event for that button, and I can begin to write code to respond to the click event for that button. Another great feature that you can add too is to take advantage of keyboard shortcuts, and to do this, again, you just right click inside of the Addin module and inside of the designer and add keyboard shortcut. And then once you have it selected, this is the active object on the designer, we can, one, make sure that it's enabled, and then two, we can come over to the shortcut text and just select something like, say, control down. And also too, in terms of the supported apps, we might just click only Outlook, since that's the one that I'm writing against right now and want to support. Alright, great. And now once I have the key combination of control down, or whichever one you'd want to select for your app, then we can come back over here, and for the action, double click, and we have the action event stubbed out for us to do whatever we like with it. Alright, I think you can begin to see just with the visual designers, these little components like this that you put on top of the Addin Module Designer, and even just the wizards that are behind some of these things, like the ribbon tab, and we're going to do a couple other things here. I think you can begin to see that Addin Express does a great job of hiding the complexity of building Office add-ins. It really just becomes more of, if you want to build objects that inside the user interface for an Office add-in, great. You go to the Addin module and you build it out. From there, you just branch out your code and you build your classes to implement whatever business rules you want. It really simplifies and reduces the time required to build an add-in for Office. Now, what I want to do next, really to kind of top this off, and before we get into deployment, is just show you how inside of Outlook, how you can create some form regions, which is a great, powerful feature inside of Addin Express. Let's go ahead and add yet another object here called or component called a Outlook Forms Manager. There it is. Great. So the ADXOL Forms Manager 1. And now what we're going to want to do is add to the project an ADX form. So we'll say from our project, the ADX Outlook sample, we'll then say add new item, and we'll go to Addin Express items inside of the installed templates, and I'll just go to Outlook just to filter my view and make it a little bit easier, and we'll say ADX Outlook form. Now you can also see that we have a few other things like property pages, the items events class, which allows us to respond to items events inside of Outlook folders, and then we have folders events class, which is a class for handling folder events of Outlook, and then the Outlook item events class, which is a class for handling item events of Outlook item classes. All things that allow us to quickly and easily handle events inside of items and folders within Outlook. But in this case, what we want is the ADX Outlook form. And I'm just going to leave everything as the default name. Say add. As you can see, we'll just open this up. It's just a blank, basically user control. Supports Windows forms, controls, and all that. It's everything you might expect. In this case, I'm just going to put maybe a little label on here. There we go. Change the text to say this, or maybe my form region. Even better, we'll say my ADX form region. Great. And then let's do like a little list box and a button. That looks great. Alright, and for fun, let's change the color. And I always have a hard time finding the colors. There it was. Let's do something like green. Perfect. Look at that. And I'll save it. And although it's perfect, now we still have a bit of work to do. I'm going to hide the toolbox here, and I'll close the ADX, or this form, and I'll close its code window. And now back in the Addin Module Designer, I want to go back to the Forms Manager, and in Properties I want to hit the ellipsis button here for Items to bring up the Forms Collection Editor. In this case, what I want to do is I'm going to add a member to it that is going to run the or manage instances of the ADX OL Form 1 that I just created in all its beautiful green glory. Down at the bottom of the properties, I'm looking for this form class name so that I can say it's going to use ADX OL Form 1. And I could change the names, but I like the really long default names just for the demo. Also, too, I could specify folder names that I want it to be utilized within and limit it just to those folders. I can set whether or not it's enabled or not. I could set the default region state to normal, which would be viewable. Hidden being, it's hidden, and then minimized would be there's a nice little split bar that ADX gives the user, and we would go ahead, it would display that and show it as minimized as its initial state. We'll go ahead and leave it as normal for now. We can choose to display a close button. I'm not going to. Always show header would be the header up above the form region, and I'm going to leave that as false as well. We have some border options. We can specify whether or not the hidden state is allowed, which goes to this default region state. So if I had said hidden and I say hidden state's not allowed, well, that's not going to work. Hidden wouldn't be allowed. Also, too, we have drag and drop. We could choose to support that. Let's see the splitter here. We could choose none or standard. So if we want to show the splitter, great. We'll choose standard. That's our only option. There's no super version or advanced version. It's just standard, and then none. So if you don't want to give the user the option to see the splitter, you choose none. We're going to go ahead and show it because I want you to see it here in a little bit. You have the tag feature that you can use. It's available for your use, and especially if you've ever done anything with VBA, you know how wonderful the tag feature can be at times. And also to use Office theme for backgrounds, we can set that true or false and to use the Office theming. So we're good here. Now also too, we can go back up here to the inspector region, and we can choose which classes we want to support. If we have any message classes, custom message classes we want to support, things like that. We can also choose inspector layouts, if we want it to be in the top subpane, bottom subpane, right subpane, etc. Let's go ahead and choose this to be in the bottom, in the left subpane, and we'll just see where that goes. Now then we have the inspector item types, which these are all of the default Outlook item types, and we can choose which ones we want to support and display our form region with and attach it to. So let's choose something like tasks and mail. That's great. They're only going to show up for mail items and task items. And then, do we want to inspector allowed drop down or drop region? Let's go once again with left subpane. I believe that's what I picked. Yeah, great. That's beautiful. Now above that we have the options for the Explorer. So in terms of caching, do we want a new instance for each folder, or do we want to use one instance for all folders? We'll do new. Explorer allowed drop regions. I'm going to go ahead and say the same thing. Let's do for here let's just say right subpane, just to have a little difference in terms of the explorers versus the inspectors. And we'll say Explorer item types again. Let's say tasks and mail. Great. And then Explorer layout, once again, let's choose right subpane. And in terms of message classes, we don't have any custom message classes that we want to attach it to. That's great. So now with that, I have all my settings set for this form region. And now let's just, what I'd like to do is just run it so that you can see it and displayed in all of its Outlook glory. But before I execute the add-in, I'm going to need to build it, and then I'm going to need to register it on my system and create the registry keys so that Office knows that the add-in is there and will load it when it loads or executes Outlook. So first off, let's just build the solution. Okay, that worked. And now next up in the build menu is the register and unregister ADX project menu items. And what we want to do here is register the ADX project. Alright, great. So registration has succeeded, and Office will know that this add-in works or is on my system, and it'll load it when I hit the execute button within Visual Studio. Now obviously this won't work on a user system, and what we'll actually need to do is build a setup project that implements ADX's click twice deployment packages. You may have heard of click once with Microsoft Office solutions, but ADX has a great combination of both MSI files and the click once model to create what they call the click twice model for deployment that allows you to use MSI as well as have auto updates that you would expect from, say, a Microsoft click once deployment. Okay, I'm now ready to debug the application. Actually, I'm not. Something I always forget to do until I try to run it the first time is I need to set in the project properties the startup application for the add-in. So instead of it trying to start a class, which won't work, we need to actually set it up so that it will run Microsoft Outlook. So we'll go find program files. There we go. Microsoft Office, Office 14, and then let's go find Outlook. There she is. Select her. Great. That should be set now. Save. And we'll start debugging. Okay, right off the bat, we'll see that my form region is available in the right subpane inside of the Explorer, and we'll see too that we have the splitter, which is available right here, and I can click that and hide it or display the subpane as I like. And now also too, let's see here, if I change the view to where the reading pane is off, then the subpane makes a little more sense in that scenario where it's on the right side. Now it appears that the Windows theming or the Office theming has overwritten my green background color, and that's okay for now. But just one thing to be aware: if you're going to enable theming, it's probably not going to be the color you set it up in design mode. So now let's move over to tasks just so we can see the same task pane available inside of an inspector. And I'll just hide this and get rid of the reading pane. And I'll create just a new task. And there we'll see the same form region available, but this time in the left subpane, again with the splitter and all that. I don't think it takes much imagination to realize with all the different panes and availability of where you can place these inside of Outlook using Addin Express. These are features that are not available using Visual Studio Tools for Office within Microsoft's Visual Studio that comes default, which is the Microsoft promulgated way of doing this. ADX gives you much more flexibility within Outlook to do things that you can't do otherwise. All right, let me close this and let's go back to Visual Studio because I want to show you how to at least set up a deployment package. I'm not going to walk through deployment in this video, but I can at least get you started with the deployment scenarios. What we need to do is go to our project object inside of the solution, and then we'll right-click on it and say Create Setup Project. And doing so will start a new wizard that we'll need to walk through. So we can set up our title, something like ADX Outlook Sample Setup Program or Program. Let's go with Program. And do something like click twice is nice. And we'll leave everything else the same. Say next. In terms of localization, which is a great feature, it makes it easy to do, but I'm going to use English US. I'll leave the file name as the default in the output directory at the default as well, and click Finish. And now what ADX will do is go ahead and create that setup program and add it as part of the solution, which makes it super easy. If I want to build it and rebuild it, and then also too if I want to do things like open up the ADX loader manifest and add items to it, edit it however I see fit. So what you have here is an MSI setup program that then has a loader, an ADX loader file to it that allows you to do a click once type deployment, but really it's a click twice scenario with Addin Express. And the thing to remember here is that click twice is nice. And that with the deployment package here, that's really everything I have to show you on this video. And just this little informal video, what I wanted you to walk away from is the architecture of ADX really makes it simple to interact with Office and create plugins or Office extensions, COM add-ins that interact with the Office object model, whether it be command bars, ribbons, keyboard shortcuts, overriding methods, which I didn't show in this video. It might be a great topic for another. Whatever, you go to the Addin module and you really have a central object that allows you to add events and add other components for your add-in. And then from there you just branch out and write your code. So the architecture is great. It's really seamless and doesn't get in the way of your code and your business rules and what you're trying to do inside of an Office add-in. The other thing is just the fact that in terms of the programming model, what I want you to understand is just how simple it is to use the Addin module and to begin to build out, like as I showed you, like with the tab, the Addin ribbon tab, where, if I can get back to it here, how easy it is to edit controls and build out that entire component just using the visual designers that are available inside of Addin Express. So those are the two big takeaways, and I didn't really write any code, and that'll be something we'll do in other videos. But for now, just know that ADX really simplifies Office development. both from an architecture standpoint and just from building out your designs and then branching out to your code. So that's all I have this video, and I'll see you next time.